I'm so pleased to welcome you to this Pilgrims of Ibillin webinar focused on pilgrimages and specifically upcoming pilgrimages in the fall of this year, and ones planned possibly for, or definitely for next year in 2024 as well. But wanting to really educate and to give opportunity to our partners from WIAM who are involved in alternative tourism and pilgrimages as well, and have supported us for many times in that endeavor, and giving them an opportunity also to speak and to answer your questions. Want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day, and particularly recognize that we come from so many different places. We come from great knowledge base. We come from possibly members of the board, longtime members of the board, donors, interested people, curious. You signed up to some webinar and you made a mistake and you're supposed to be learning about, I don't know, X, Y, or Z, but you're here. So obviously there's some reason that you are. So we're really glad to have all of you here. My name is Gail Doring, and I would like to introduce the participants on the panel today first, and then I'll tell you just a brief bit about myself at the end. But helping us out both technologically, but also with much experience in this area, as well as the title of Executive Director of Pilgrims of Ibillin, is Esrea Charon. And Esrea was been involved in the Abraham Path and in a founder and director in Sister City project in Boulder with Nablus in Palestine. Has led many trips and has done phenomenal work, and we're so pleased to have her as our executive director and really glad to have her here today. Then we have Osama Nicola, who has been a part of the WIAM staff and very much involved in tourism and a tour guide himself. Osama, I believe you were educated at Bethlehem Bible College, is that right, for your tourism?
Bethlehem University.
Bethlehem University, okay. I want to get that right. Generations of family from Palestine, and wonderful tour guide, and had the opportunity a couple of times, with this last time in the fall of last year, being able to be with him for a more extended period of time and see his knowledge and his great care of groups. And he will be leading our upcoming pilgrimages as well. And then last but definitely by no means least, Zugbi, who is the director of the WIAM Conflict Center, also founder, right by the Checkpoint 300, and doing phenomenal work, and is in his car. Some of us have been traveling here in the States, and I personally am a pastor, and I went to seminary because they told me there would be no math. And so doing time translations has been a challenge, and Zugbi is double committed, but he's so dedicated that he's going to be with us as long as he can. And his list of credentials is really too long for me to even begin to put forth, but he has a laundry list of credentials and education. But I think the main thing is his depth of faith and his commitment to the work of welfare and peacemaking in all generations across the land in Palestine. So Zugbi, thank you for being here as much as you can.
Welcome. I started the pilgrimage and citizen diplomacy. I was working in it for a long time.
And Zugbi, you have frozen on us. I'm so sorry.
During many times. Sorry, I didn't hear from 1990, in addition to the men. And I led all the groups before, as well as we will continue, Osama and I and other colleagues, to continue on that path.
Great. So we wanted to start out with an introductory comments from, I think, from all of us to talk about there is, you hear this word pilgrimage, and what does that mean, and what is difference between a pilgrimage and what one of our former EDs, executive directors, used to say, and it's a coined term, what's the difference between that and just simply going and running where Jesus walked? Or another way is to say we simply just go from holy site to holy site, and that there is something unique and different about the experiences that we offer. And not that we're the only ones that do, but certainly there is I think a minority of those experiences available. And so wanted to have Osama just talk a little bit about alternative tourism and what that is, and the pilgrimages that he and Zugbi has led and WIAM leads, as well as what those differences are. So Osama, could you address that a little bit?
Thank you very much. Like we at the center has the Citizen Diplomacy Project, where, like all of us are working together to help our brothers and sisters to come and see, to come and learn. Most of the pilgrimage will be doing more religious sites. Beside the pilgrimage activities, we always try to add a different activities to help our visitors, our friends, to meet local organization, local people, visit sites that's more affected during the situation. We add some alternative hiking to highlight the geopolitical situation. We focus in some areas as a case studies, for example, Hebron area, to understand more of the situation. In some tours, we add homestay to meet the local people, the different communities, and to have more social and political. And we know how important it is to visit the holy sites and to follow the steps of the Jesus Christ, and to make the Bible look alive. But also, since the situation here is really not that normal, we need more people to understand more the situation, to be able to get engaged in working for peace and justice and reconciliation. And I'm sure my colleague Zogby, since he has been more in this project and he has been leading, he might maybe share more information and can focus more about the alternative tours and the Citizen Diplomacy Project, since he has more knowledge and experience. Zugbi, would you like to add?
I start saying, my compatriot, can you hear me?
Yes.
My compatriot Saint Jerome talk about 5 gospels: 4 the New Testament, and the 5th when you visit the land and meet the people. So when you visit the land and meet people is considered the 5th gospel. And for us, when we talk about alternative tourism, we are talking also about the 6th gospel. And pilgrimage, if we talk about pilgrimage, we talk about the 6th gospel, that you are the 6th gospel. I'm not a theologian, but I ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So for us, when you come to the Holy Land, you enhance our faith and give it a different dimension, because this is in a way another what we offer others in pilgrimage and tourism and alternative tourism, citizen diplomacy, people to people. We are talking about transnational community of faith. That means we are Christians from all over the world, and with this pilgrimage, we enhance this kind of relationship. Also, the idea is not only to visit the holy stones, but to be exposed the life of the living stones and to be introduced to the socio-economic political stones that really, and what we do in our program, we try to offer the pilgrimage and the tourist first, approach. That means to have knowledge from the resources, to meet with people from different backgrounds, from different faiths, from different tradition, to have first-hand knowledge from the people rather than someone to indoctrinate the others about it. Second, we are, as a community of faith, as Martin Luther King is a beloved community, we always receive empathy and not sympathy from people. And we have also empathy to others. And this kind of pilgrimage is a unique opportunity to provide and receive empathy. And this is very important because through empathy, you are not only putting your foot in our shoes, as the Indian or the Native Americans will say, it is not enough to put yourself in the moccasin of others, but to walk a few miles with it. You are, with this kind of trip, you are walking with us and along, side by side, brothers and sisters. So empathy is very important. You show your solidarity, you enhance our faith, you foster our walk and talk in the less traveled road, and of course, you enrich our, steadfastness. So in a way or another, you create with us a complete circle of faith, a complete circle of amicable relationship, and you are practicing compassionate listening, and this is very important for healing for both sides. When we practice compassionate listening and listen with our hearts, is a different synergy and a different scenario. Probably I stop here rather than go on in this. It is different than tourism. It is not running where Jesus walked, but to contemplate through Bible study. Also, in addition to what Osama said, through listening to the stories, through telling the stories, through celebrating with us faith, mass, resurrection, and of course, your empathy with our walking through Via Dolorosa.
Thank you, Zigby. And that's actually a really great segue. I'm going to remind people a couple of things. As people speak, if you have questions that you would like to address in the last parts of our 1 hour together, please put those in the Q&A section on your Zoom, but also watch the chat as she has an opportunity. Asria is going to put information about links to WIAM and to Pilgrims of Ibillin, but also possibly a link, but you can find it, to information about our upcoming pilgrimages are on the Pilgrims of Ibillin website. So those will be important to watch for if you have interest. And I would say, even if you yourself do not have interest in these, really welcome you to share it widely on your social media. If you are talking to a friend and someone's wanting to know more. But I was going to turn it to Esrea actually and ask, I have one, but I'll hold back. An example of a story that Zugby just mentioned in terms of meeting the people. And if you think of any particular snippet or example of something that happened, someone that you encountered, and how that shaped one of your pilgrimage experiences.
Well, so that is kind of where I always feel like the treasure lies in our trips, is connecting with Palestinians and hearing their stories. It's really remarkable how many, every Palestinian that I have ever met has a unique story, And each of them helped to fill out my understanding of the experience of living under occupation for most Palestinians their entire life. And you know, I will say probably the most memorable incident during a visit to Palestine for me was meeting a woman who lives in Dheisheh refugee camp. And this was my second visit to Palestine. And when I asked her to tell me a little bit about her life and where she lives, she told me that a refugee camp, and that shattered my understanding of Palestine, because previous to hearing about her story, I had held the understanding that this land between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River was devoid of people, and that the Jews came to populate an empty land, that there was no people there. It was a land without a people for a people without a land, is kind of what I had it had been instilled in me from a young age, this understanding. And so when she told me that she lived in a refugee camp, that sent my mind a whir. I didn't understand, like, where would you be a refugee from, and why would you be a refugee in Palestine? It didn't make any sense to me at all. And so that was the beginning of a journey of trying to grapple with the difference between what I was told as a child growing up versus the reality that you are exposed to when you visit this this very special place and these very special people. So it's to me, it was painful to sort of have my life, you know, understanding be shattered in such a way, but so freeing, really, to be exposed to what I consider to be the truth.
And before I share my story, I would like to say too that I know some of you on this call have been before multiple times, and it always feels like the webinar format for Zoom is wonderful in many ways, but one of the ways it's not as wonderful is we can't all talk together. And so if you want to share a brief example in the chat for the benefit of everyone and make this a little bit more participatory, I would welcome you to do that. Distinguishing in between the chat, the Q&A is simply for questions that you would like Osama or Esria or I to address. I have visited 7 times, I think, and every single time it is different, and I meet different folks. But the story I'm going to tell a little bit on Zugby, and just the ways in which sometimes it's not even what's the primary program or person or purpose, but that as we gathered at WIAM, the hospitality is incredible, the food is incredible, and folks were there making salads and getting things prepared, and Zugby's wife Elaine came, and as you may or may not know, one of the many challenges of occupation is permission to live and travel, and I don't know, there's like what, 7, 8 different status types of ID and citizenship, and the need to come in and out, and the separation of couples, those being married when one is a Palestinian and one is not, when one is a resident or a citizen of Israel versus one who is it lives in and has their home in the West Bank, and so on. And so Elaine told at length stories about her coming in and out and being restricted and having to live separately for a long period of time. It had a deep impact on me, but also on our whole group. It was like, I don't want to say a highlight in the way that it's a good thing, but that people were very moved by that story. wanted to make it into a book and into a movie. It's one of the ways in terms of that was almost a side conversation, but that we make time for those things to happen when we are meeting with groups or with individuals. And that's kind of a little mini miracle. And maybe, as Zugby also said, the ways in which pilgrims are not only those who come to see, but also come with a real awareness that we are receiving incredible and sometimes sacrificial hospitality from those. And at least for me, that's not lost on me, that when you're in a place of daily, hourly, constant, oppressive kinds of action all the way around your living, to then be able to extend that hospitality and to be gracious and grateful for us is remarkable. And I don't know how many of us think that we could act with the same level of grace. Usama, would you mind pointing out, maybe for you even, what are some highlights for you of the places? I don't know whether I made it in my mind. Your pictures are so phenomenal, but I really wanted to see Hisham's palace, and I felt like your photos were the best photos that anyone had ever shared of that place. And I don't know whether that's one of your special spots or not, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about 2 or 3 locations that you like to take people to, maybe an organization, but in addition, of course, to We On Your Own. But could you share a little bit about some of the specifics, because those will certainly go into the plans and into probably what will shape some of the upcoming pilgrimages. So would you say a little bit about that?
Thank you. Yes, in most of the pilgrimage we do, like every place we visit is unique, and every place we walk is unique, and we try to understand and see it in a different eyes and in different way, to learn about its history, to learn about the story today, to learn about its importance for everyone. So like coming to Wiam and just standing in the roof of Wiam, looking at what we call, and what I'm quoting our director Zubi, he called it the unholy trinity, because you can understand a lot just from our roof, looking at a refugee camp. We can explain about the history, what happened in 1948, the different narratives about it. Then we look at an illegal Israeli settlement, also in the view that explain about all this situation, what happened after 1967, and all this situation. Then we are in the shadow of the wall, to understand more the Palestinian story of the wall and how it affects our daily life and our movement and all of these things. So you can summarize a lot, just sitting and looking from our like our roof. Like whenever you go to Hebron, it's nice to walk in the old town, and with all these welcoming shopkeepers, with everyone smiling with you, everyone offer you tea and coffee, the Palestinian hospitality. Visiting the tomb of the patriarchs, visiting some organization and meet with people there is amazing. See the
عندي اجتماع هون عندنا اجتماع هون في الاوتيل انا في الغاد بحط غاد لفوق.
If we can mute would be. Oh, he mute himself. Great. So the idea is that every place you go, you see the seller of the bread in the market in the old town, like doing the markuk, the shrak, and then when you explain to the group about it, he offer you to try it, to taste it, so going, walking in the old streets of Bethlehem, Star Street, which has been recognized and registered as a World Heritage Site, like knowing your history, as a Bethlehemite, Star Street, the old town, all the quarters of Bethlehem is very important, to know more about my history, our history, and the history of the city. That make us love more our country and our places. Going to Jericho, walking there, some of these hiking paths that lead to Jericho, the old ancient roads, stop at Sycamore tree, going and view the Mount of Temptation, going to Hisham's palace that has the largest protected mosaic in the Middle East, with almost 38 beautiful mosaic in a good shape that has a lot of history also. Going to the Buddhism side, Dead Sea, the lowest place in the lowest place in the earth, so any place you go, you try to see it and understand it in a different way. Understand the biblical story, understand the parable about it from, the Bible. Like the best thing is to sit or overlook St. George Monastery in Kiln Valley and read the parable of the Good Samaritan and reflect about it. That's a very important. This is a very important parable, for our situation, to understand who is my neighbor, to reflect about it and read it and, have different point of views about it. Going to Nablus, Jacob, the Samaritan community, this is
Lutfi, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
the smallest community, to learn more about the Samaritan. Who is the Samaritan? Where they come from, and what's the difference between them and the others? Okay, so everywhere you go, there is a story to learn about it, to meet people. Going to Jacob's Well, this most authentic place in the Holy Land, and meet Father Justinian there, this brave person who commit his life to develop this place and make it an amazing place and a welcoming place and a lively place. And to reflect over the Samaritan women monologue, this long monologue with Jesus, which is also an amazing lesson to learn from. So every place you go, there is a lot to talk, to experience, sharing personal stories, and seeing the different landscape. Our country is a small country, but full of different geography, landscape, stories, and all of these things.
So I have a question that one of the guests has posed that that I have an answer to, but Usama, I would love to hear, based on your experience of late. You said that you've been leading many tours recently, and so one participant asked that they've been very active supporting Palestine, kind of on the internet and social media, Facebook, etc. Do you imagine that they would have any difficulty getting entrance into at the Israeli border?
Since the beginning of the year, we don't have anyone who we know and we work with and we welcome at our center who has any problems coming in. In general, even none of the participants in our delegations in the past, like since many years, none of them have any difficulty coming in. So it has, with the groups, no one will face a problem. Sometimes individuals might be asked more questions when they come as individuals, where you're going, what you are doing. Have you been in the West Bank before? Sometime, we encourage people, not to be stressed about it, because they are coming in a pilgrimage, they are coming to see the land, they are coming to meet the people, and nothing wrong in that. Okay, so it's easy to come in if you are, like you have a group you come with, and like maybe we can share some tips with the members of the group in advance about, maybe possible some questions that they will be asked and how to deal with it.
Asria, do you want to say a couple words too? Because I have experiences as well. So, and
Yeah. I was just going to kind of share similar to what you said, Usama, is that we for all the folks who do join our Livingstone's trips, we offer an orientation, and we help to prepare you for what to expect at the border, and also just my own personal experience. If you Google even just my first name, all you'll see is Palestine, nothing but Palestine. And so I often have been cautious in preparing for my trip, and getting rid of Facebook, shutting down Facebook, just trying to like clean up my mobile phone so that if anybody were to look at it, it wouldn't be too obvious. But I've just, these days, it's just never been an issue. So I don't go through all those gymnastics anymore trying to prepare. And I've never had a problem, never had a problem.
And I would not be able to say quite that clearly that I've never had problems, but it's always been different. And I've been 7 times, and I've always gotten in. I've never been detained or sent back home, or kept in the country in some holding cell for a period of time. And I always sort of take a deep breath and say, Palestinians who do have the benefit and actually are able to travel face much worse almost every single time and go through so many more gymnastics. And I think the big key is just to be relaxed and tell the truth. It certainly seemed to me in 2022, it was much more relaxed. And I got no questions in either direction. But I'm always aware that, it could change. And I think also the person that talked about, social media and other kinds of presence, once you've done something, they know they can get in and find it. So, I get to the point where I'm like, well, I'm not gonna, everybody, there's some cyberspace that knows everything about me anyway. So there we go. I would like to open it up. I know we have some other questions, but
before that, can I mention?
Yes.
Can I mention that Israeli will target members of ISM? It is International Solidarity Movement, or sometimes the EAPPI, but usual and other activists. But with the groups, no, they talk to the leader of the group, and sometimes if they are notorious, they will ask 1 or 2 of the group members. So there is no fear. And since the last 10 years, there were something between 1995 to 2000 was easy. Later on, they were picky on persons. Nowadays, in the last few years, nothing has happened except some targeted activists. So no fear. With the training that Osama and give you some tips on how to answer, I think there will be no problem at all. And of course, your safety for us is a priority. Your safety is a big priority, and always we have contingency plans to deal with the issue of safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Zugby. And actually somebody, I think in the Q&A earlier said something about, the use of the word pilgrimage and, whether insecurity that sometimes can flag something. And, one time I used the word volunteer, and yes, that flags something. So once again, I think it's just being able to be as honest and as limited in speaking as possible. And that actually, Zugby's last comment about safety led us to the other questions we figured that might be, and certainly is almost always a concern with groups, or at least with individuals within every single group I've ever taken. And so Zugby's already said at the top level, safety is important. When going, regardless of what kind of experience you are having in the Holy Land, flexibility and the knowledge that you may have it in your mind that on day 5 you are going to go to Nablus or go to to the old city, and something might be happening in Jerusalem that day, and changes will have to occur because of a route to get there or whatever. And Zugby, I have experienced Osama in this. I've experienced other guides in this where they are so knowledgeable and so able to just almost seamlessly, by consulting with the leadership and saying, well, what if we tried this instead? And have it be just as marvelous an experience as whatever was written on the projected schedule. But do you want to say a little bit, Osama and or Zugby, about how you monitor and how you read safety for pilgrim groups right now?
Currently, like, this is the high season for tourists, and we can see many tourists visiting despite all the challenges and despite all the situation. For us, we keep following the news, to make sure that if today we have a plan to go to a certain city, a certain place, we make sure that, the roads are okay, there's nothing over there. If we need to change any plans, we will change it. So we keep following the news up to date regarding roads, regarding the place we are going to visit. Again, as Zugby mentioned, the security of the group, of every member in the group, is our priority. Also, our security is our priority. So it's very important for all of us to be safe, okay? To do the right thing at the right time. If things need to be changed, we will change it. We will not hesitate to do any needed changes in the right time before we and thanks God, we never had any really bad experience or any, we didn't witness any dangerous during our tours.
We will be also in touch with the people on the ground and different news agency, and we check before we go to the place. And of course, through the place in case there are some troubles. So we are alert all the time and have our ears and eyes are open, and our colleague in the office will feed us with any information besides the people that we communicate and go to listen to. So this is very important, and things might be changing anytime. But of course, always we have contingency plans, and we can really relate to people and to their safety when collective approach as well in the individual approach.
Great, thank you. I was just going to ask a question, but Gail, did you want to respond?
No, I was going to actually turn us to the Q&A now and just remind people, and I'm sorry I told you to put examples of your own experiences if you had them in the chat, and I understand the chat is disabled, so you put things in the Q&A too if you want to, but Esra is monitoring the Q&A, and I think we will turn to open questions for folks in that. Is that where you were going?
That's where I was going.
All
Yeah.
right, good.
So Alex has a question saying there's many groups that you can visit Palestine and Israel with. So how do you recommend one to choose? Like, how do you choose the best organization and based on which criteria? So like, well, the question is, what are each's specialty, which I don't know that we can answer other groups' specialty, but perhaps we could respond to what is the specialty for Pilgrims of Ibillin trips.
Would you like me to begin that, and then maybe Osama and or Zugby could chime in too? But I think there has been an intentionality and a value of certainly of peacemaking and justice, and as was stated earlier, relating the faith community, certainly with an emphasis on the founder of the school, Mar Elias Institution, is was founded by a Christian Melkite priest, but also that WIAM is a Christian organization, but with a full knowledge of the other two Abrahamic faiths in the land. And so I am running out of battery. That is not a good thing. Excuse me. I think that is a lens, Christian peacemaking. Father Chacour has done extensive study and reflection on the Beatitudes, and blessed are the peacemakers. So that is certainly one lens, but also I think with an eye to be able to accommodate both first timers and folks who have never been before, but also an experience that does have an appeal to people who are coming repeated times. Not every experience is like that. If it's an itinerary that really does just look like we're going from site to site to site, and there are no organizations or no people or no times of break involved, but it's just a laundry list of to-dos to check off. That might be something one would look at, and that might be appealing experience to some. It's not what this is designed to be. I think it's designed to give a deeper and broader experience. Ezra, do you have any other things to say that I'm missing there? And we also look very intentional. Sorry, one more thing. Intentionally to contribute, being careful about where we invest when we are there, and how it's a personal, it's not in our mission itself, but that we would really go with an intent to sort of, when you hike in our parklands, there is a statement about leaving it better than you found it, or you pack it in, you pack it out. I would say those are things that kind of run around in my head when I come to the land, is to do no harm, but try to really endeavor to be not only one who takes, but also one who is aware, even in the safety question. We don't want to put our hosts at risk. We want them to be safe as well. Those kinds of spirits are important but I can't really, and I could compare some, but I think that's important for someone who's looking for information. Cost is another one. These are not the things, everything has gotten expensive everywhere. I recognize it is not an inexpensive adventure either. And so. Osama, do you have other things to say about that?
The center and has been involved in this alternative tourism, and as we call it, the citizen diplomacy project, since its beginning, because we have found that it's important for people to understand what is happening here. It's very good to come and see, but also because through our work with women organizations, with youth organization, with other places in the West Bank, we have the experience, the knowledge to network, to make things going easy. Our detective to conflict resolution and to peace and justice. So we always try to add things that help people to understand more what is the situation look like these days, and how peace can be possible for the future. So we focus about different things, the experience that we have, the networking, all of these things make the partnership with Pilgrims of Ibillin, all these things make make this trip is very unique.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Usama. I just wanted to respond to some of the questions that people have posed. And Alex, if you feel like you still have questions, feel free to post and we can respond. But some have asked about size limitations of the group, and recently the groups that we've brought have been 10 to 12 people, but if we were to have a limitation, I would say maybe 24 or 25. I don't know, Usama, maybe you could speak to that as well. And then there was also a question about meeting with Archbishop Chacour, and that is always both a feature and a highlight of the Living Stones pilgrimages. And it's always, of course, dependent on his, his ability, because he's now in his 80s, and he does have some health issues. So as long as he's feeling up to joining us for a meeting, that's obviously a very special opportunity, is to meet with Father Chacour in person.
And I see a question in there too about, the Esria has also put in now, again, keeping in mind it is tentative, but an itinerary sample in the chat. And we do split our time a bit more in the West Bank, but we also definitely, Ibillin is in the Northern Galilee region. So Nazareth, the sea, often, that afternoon on the boat is often a highlight for people, just to, again, some of those experiences that allow you a little bit of time to unwind and let things literally sort of soak in, are definitely usually almost always a part of those experiences too. Other questions, Esra, that we need to answer from the Q&A?
So Diane asked if the fall itinerary that is mentioned in the chat is available somewhere. So I thought I had attached it to the chat, but maybe it didn't go through. But I realize I need to put that on the Pilgrims of Ibillin website, and I will do that hopefully today or tomorrow. However, in the meantime, I can also send it to you by email. And I have everybody's email, because when you registered, you had to put that in. So I'll just send everybody the itinerary and more detailed information by email. And if you have any other questions for me, feel free to just respond that way. Other questions are, let's see. Well, so Larry Mulligan has shared a few messages for you, Usama, just appreciating the trips that he had with you in the past. In 2014, let's see, this was a visit to Hebron just after the 3 young Jewish settlers were killed in 2014. And and the second going from Bethlehem to the Old City on Good Friday. So anyway, much appreciation for the time spent with you in the past. So Al asked about the flexibility of the itinerary, and okay, again, another question about where can we see the itinerary. So if you didn't get it in the chat, I will send it to you by email. And where do we stay at night? Usama, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, we have a tentative booking in Bethlehem in one of organization called L'Arsh Ma'an Lil Haya. That has a little small boutique hotel not far from Manger Square, 3 minutes walking from Manger Square. L'Arsh organization is a unique organization also in Bethlehem that work with children and adults with disabilities. So it's an old building that has beautiful rooms, just a new building, and beautiful place, beautiful view, and close to everything. That's in Bethlehem. And in Galilee, we are going to stay at Pilgrims of at Ibillin, Abuna Elias guest house in Ibillin. So these are the two places for our stay.
Are there any other questions that people might have?
I will just re-add the emphasis that's being given of recommending, we're biased, obviously, but that there are persons on the Q&A that also are have been past participants of pilgrims and pilgrimages and are recommending Usama. So that makes us happy. And I think there's like a sort of a warning for me that says everyone will give their whole heart and soul to making this the best possible for all persons involved, for our hosts, for our guides, and for each participant. And it will not be perfect. We know that already too. And so, but that somehow that togetherness and building community, I think it's a part that's important about an orientation. I also am keen about follow-up and helping people determine how they might continue their connection. That's another difference, that this is not just, we want someone to say this is a one and done, and we come and we see and we learn, and it was a great experience, and now I go on with my life. We have now made, and that's part of maybe the living stones, is we've made friends and we've learned things that we can't, as my daughters like to tell me, Mom, I can't unsee that, that we cannot unsee and we cannot unlearn, and we need to continue to be positive action in our own lives and in the world. And so I would encourage, as I said, all of you, and depending on your availabilities and your possibilities, either you are encouraging others to do the same in support of peace and justice and human welfare in that land, as well as around the world, as God so loved it. So do you each have closing comments? Yes.
A couple more questions, sorry, before we get to that. One, I just wanted to share what Larry put in the Q&A about, he's been to Palestine 3 times, once with a commercial group with a Jewish guide, which was wonderful, but not without its issues, and twice with Pilgrims of Ibillin, and based on those experiences, wholeheartedly recommends the pilgrimage with Pilgrims of Ibillin. So thank you for sharing that, Larry. I appreciate it. And then Laurent also has a question about, does everyone fly on the same flight, and where does the flight originate from? And we typically can recommend that folks try to get on the same flight, sometimes like going through JFK, but because we have people coming from all over the country, and sometimes people will go a little bit early or, vice versa, stay a little bit late. Often we just advise people to time your arrival between like a 3 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon window, which means departing the day prior and just trying to find a flight. And that way we can all travel together from the airport to the hotel in Bethlehem, which makes getting to the hotel much easier. So that's how we handle the flights, and we don't typically all travel on the same flights, but we do, kind of give you guidance and advice on kind of what flights to aim for.
I would also say I have quite a bit of experience with this and have traveled with all sorts of groups, and early on learned it's best. People sometimes also want to use mileage, or they want to do an extension themselves into Petra and Jordan. But I've done enough of it of people nervous. I'm personally happy to help people find flights and even coordinate with people that are regionally near them and try to get them on the same flights too. So we can work with people and help you. It just turns out to be kind of a nightmare and not a lot of advantage to try to do all the bookings for people and have them all try to get on the same flight and airline. Yeah. So was that it, Asraya, for questions? Thank you so much for your good questions and for your participation. I'd like to give Osama an opportunity, and Asraya, if you would like to give a last little, I realized that wanting to really jump into the pilgrimage, and I didn't do that elevator speech on pilgrims as well, but if you could give us a little each of you give us a parting comment before we let you all go to your lunches or your mid-morning meetings or your yoga class, we would be closing at the end of the hour. So Osama, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Gail. I want to thank every person who participate in this webinar, and we hope that we will see you in fall. And we are continue to do what we are doing is because what reviews we hear from the participants. Many participants, it was a life changing for them. So like you folks in general get a lot of news through one-sided or through one narrative. But when you come here, you are going to learn more than one narrative. You will understand more the situation. You will understand many things related to the history, the conflict, the occupation, all of these things, and we can learn together and share with you. So please don't miss this opportunity. We want to see you and we want to share with you our knowledge, our experience, our beautiful land, our warm hospitality, and we are looking forward to welcome you.
And Osama, thank you for your time as well. We know that life doesn't stop around you, and it means a lot to us that you took this time. Asraya, do you have?
Yeah, I would second that. Thank you so much, Osama, for your time and all the heart and soul that you put into making these amazing trips for all of us. And I pretty much echo Osama's sentiments. I really hope that we can welcome you on our fall trip. I know some of you on the call have indicated that the fall dates probably won't work. So perhaps the April trip in 2024, which at this point we are working on the itinerary, but don't have that nailed down yet. So yeah, thank you all for your time, and I hope to meet you in person if I've not already done so on our Livingstone's trip in the fall. And in the meantime, if there are additional questions that come to mind, feel free to reach out either by phone or email, either one.
And I can't wait to go back, and I echo everything that Usama and Asraya and even Zugbi said in the when he was with us. And also, if you can pass on our thanks to him for making the time that he was able to make with us, and in his scheduling challenges. And we kind of got to see real time what life is like there, and how juggling just is part of it. And so very grateful to every single person here, and invite you to check that website from the chat, and ask your questions and contact us, and look forward to maybe meeting and seeing some of you in the fall.
Wonderful.
Inshallah.